We have a very special guest on today. His name is Philip Mantle. He really doesn't need an introduction because everybody knows him. He's been involved in the topic of ufology for 40 years, and he just got a wonderful award. And Phil will tell us where he got that award at. I'm not very good at pronouncing the name of it, but it's a wonderful award. It's an astounding achievement regarding why he got the award. And then also, he is the publisher of Flying Disc Press, and he's been publishing a UFO and other phenomenon-related material for many years now. And just also wanted to mention that Phil has many friends in the area of ufology, and everybody knows him. Thank you so much for being with us today on the show today, Phil.
My pleasure, Chant. My pleasure.
Now, I just kind of wanted to get into it. First, let's mention the award that you got, that wonderful award. Can you please tell us where you got that award at and what it was for?
Yeah, there was a conference here in my hometown this weekend. The conference was staged by a magazine here called Outer Limits magazine, edited by Chris Evers. My hometown is called Pontefract in the county of West Yorkshire in England. And much to my surprise, myself and a colleague by the name of Malcolm Robinson both received an award this weekend. It was a great surprise, but it's always nice to have a pat on the back and somebody say well done. So yeah, it was a big surprise, but I'm very pleased.
Yes, as you should be. And also, one thing everybody knows about you, Phil, is that you're an extremely humble person, and you don't like to you don't really talk yourself up that much. You just sort of just the facts kind of guy, and you also thoroughly enjoy the friendships that you have regarding the topic that you and I cover on a regular. You have some very deep friendships with some very high profile people. Can you mention a few of the well-known people that you publish books for?
Yeah, I mean, I've made friends in this subject around the world, Chant. I mean, literally just before speaking to you this evening, I've been speaking to a friend of mine in Norway. And he and I met in the 1980s. He was part of a UFO group there, and that's how we met. And we've been great friends ever since. And, I've published a wide variety of things by different authors around the world. One of the ideas I had when I started Flying Disc Press was to try and publish material that perhaps we don't see in the West that often because of the language barrier. So I've published information from Poland and Romania and Italy. I have a book out next month from a Japanese researcher. So, and on it goes.
Yeah, I would also like to mention something interesting about publishing in different languages. It's not that simple to just get it instantly translated, it meaning a book or some kind of material a person wants to publish. They have to get very thoroughly involved in finding an individual who has the ability to edit books properly and translate in the most correct manner possible. So it must be very difficult and challenging at times for you to find just the right people to help you publish the books in the language that you decide you want it to be published in. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I mean it's not that easy. I'm not a trained publisher or editor, and we're just being fortunate, Chant, because we've been involved for so long, and I know a lot of people, and you can call on friends to help. I've made some mistakes along the way. I don't profess to be perfect, but last year my colleague Paul Stonehill and I had our first book published in Russia. So this year we have two more coming out in Russia with a company there. One will be by Dr. Irina Scott, her book UFOs Today. And also Calvin Parker's book, Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, will be out in Russian, and a variety of other languages as well. So it's, a lot of my colleagues went down a similar route, Chant. They went from being a researcher to being a writer, a magazine editor, and some of them, fortunately, also went into publishing. So I've just been lucky, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to mention two things regarding what you just said. One is Dr. Irina Scott, a wonderful person who's been deeply involved in the topic of ufology for many decades. and she herself, she also deserves an award. I know you agree with me on that, Phil, regarding being a top-notch UFO researcher. She was just in Phoenix, Arizona, doing a wonderful talk for MUFON. Also, regarding Calvin Parker, he's going to be at International UFO Congress, owned by Karen Berard, and also help to managed in the sense of helping to manage the UFO Congress by Alejandro Rojas, her partner. And he's a UFO researcher also. Calvin Parker will be there. That's September 4th through the 8th. I highly recommend everybody go to that. It's a wonderful conference that is probably the biggest UFO conference worldwide. Now, Phil, also wanted to mention something anecdotal, and that is Spiros Malaris was skulking around that wonderful UFO conference that you were at, sneaking around trying to avoid you so that he could surprise you at Pontefract. Isn't that correct?
It's correct. I mean, I helped organize the event, but Chris was the main organizer, and he said, I've got a special guest, but he wouldn't tell me who it was. So I just forgot about it, to be honest. We had another special guest. We had a gentleman come over from Greece and do a short presentation. And I thought he was the special guest. And lo and behold, who's hiding in the curtains on the stage? It's Spiros Malaris, and it did make me chuckle. It really did.
Yes, he's a lovely person. And also wanted to mention to everybody, just to update you on the 18-minute alien autopsy film that some people have claimed to own, which is not correct. The only true owner of that film would be Spiros Malaris. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to make sure the listeners understand that, and if they need any evidence or proof of that, he does have the document to provide to everyone, which I can also show in the chat room after we play this clip on air. The document, so everybody can look at that for their review, to see how he is in fact the owner of the 18-minute alien autopsy film. Now, Phil, you did a really wonderful post today that caught my eye. I got very excited about it. I'm going to bring up a screenshot of it for myself, and I'll be sure to share that during the interview when we air this. Actually, many screenshots, including pictures that you shared. Now, I'm going to read the post. The post that you did today was this. Just a few words to say I found a little nugget today that might be of interest. I have been filming my part in a UFO documentary series over the last 2 days. I still have one more day of filming to be done shortly in London. During today's interview, I was asked about my involvement in the infamous alien autopsy film, Hoax. As we discussed this, I told the producer that I actually had one of the film canisters, which was sent to me years ago by Ray Santilli. This film can had been left in my filing cabinet for years. Well, I took it out, and hey, presto, what do I find in it? A hand-signed note from Colm Kelleher and Eric Davis, two of the men mentioned in the recently leaked alien autopsy memo. Not only that, there were still a few frames of 16mm film that Ray Santilli claims are from the alien autopsy film. Here are some photos I have taken today, so you can see what I'm talking about. I had, of course, helped them try and get some film for analysis and get a Betacam copy of the alien autopsy film. I do get a brief mention in the now famous memo. It still makes me smile when I look back at what some people have recently written about the alien autopsy film hoax. I had forgotten that I had these little nuggets in my filing cabinet. I wonder what analysis Kelleher and Davis conducted on these bits of rubbish film. In the meantime, I'm looking forward to reading Richard Dolan's article on his interview with Dr. Kit Green. For Richard's sake, I do hope that he's still not going down the CIA route with regards to the alien autopsy film being a disinformation film made by them. We shall see. End of quote, and the post by Philip Mantle regarding the text of it. Then we move on to the pictures. Now, the pictures that you shared were absolutely wonderful. It's a picture of an old film canister, and then we have it opened, And then on the inside of that open film canister, we have a wonderful note here that says, received from Philip Mantle via Bill McGarity on August 25th at 10 a.m. Signed, I'm adding the word signed, by the way, Colm Kelleher and Eric W. Davis. And it looks like those are their signatures, because the names right there regarding Colm and Eric are distinctly different regarding the look of their names compared to the actual text written on that green post-it note. And on that green post-it note, laying on top of it, are tiny little bits of film. Now, my question, I have many questions for you actually, Phil. But my question to you is it safe to assume that it's possible that this is Colm Kelleher's signature and Eric W. Davis's signature on this green post-it note inside this film canister?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the post-it note is stuck on a little envelope, and the little slivers of film that you see, 16mm film, were actually inside the envelope.
Okay. And my other question to you is, could you please, because I will be showing this picture to the audience regarding this green post-it note and these tiny little frames of 16mm film that you have, what are we looking at there?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I was contacted by Colm Kelleher and Bill McGarity, or whatever his name is, when they ran the National Institute of Discovery Sciences,
Yes.
which was Bigelow's organisation.
Right.
And they contacted me on email, and they just asked me to help firstly get a good copy of the alien autopsy film, you know, a good quality copy, which I did. And they asked me to see if I could help get them some film for analysis, which I did. And these are the slivers of film, or some of them. I think originally it was a bit longer than that, because I've got some old photographs of the same bits of film, Chant, but they're a bit longer. So I assume they cut a couple off, and I let them have it. I never got any feedback. What you see is what was returned. It was returned by Federal Express, so I still have it in the same packet that it arrived in, and it's just been stuck in my filing cabinet, which is right next to me here, for years. So you know, when we were talking to the producer today, I just said, I'll show you it if you like. So I took it out. It comes in two parts, of course, and it's a bit bent, so it sticks. It's not easy to get open. So I managed to open it, and hey presto, these bits and pieces were still in it. I'd forgotten all about them.
Okay, I have many questions, but I want to mention to our audience that when you say the producer, who you're referring to is actually a person involved in the UFO documentary that you're currently involved in. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, they're making a 4-part series, and I'm just a small part of it.
Understood. And now, what was the exact impetus or something that unhinged an old memory of your having realized that you had these artifacts in your possession? Was it something that tripped a memory, or were you just going through your cabinets? What's the story, Phil?
Well, we're just talking in general about the alien autopsy film and how I became involved and so on. So I have here, you know, the alien autopsy film itself on video, which Ray Santilli sold. So I've got a copy of that and showed them that. And I just remembered I'd still got the film canister. One whole file drawer of my filing cabinet is dedicated to the research I did on the alien autopsy film. So there's documents, there's papers, and we're talking about some of these. And I said, oh, by the way, I've still got one of the film canisters, and I'll get it out. So I showed them. They took some still photographs of it as well, and then I popped it open, and there was the little envelope with the post-it note on it and a few frames inside. So they didn't really comment on it. I just put it to one side and thought I'll deal with that later.
Okay, I have a technical question for you. Are you in a position, Phil, to actually take those tiny bits of frames of film and sort of put them in the air and have somebody take a picture of them so we can see them in their entirety?
Well, you've seen them in their entirety on the picture I did.
I
That
actually,
is it.
go ahead.
You know, that is all there is. You know, that is it.
Okay, so let me ask my question better. I apologize. Is there a light box available to you where you can
No.
put them on top of that?
No, I don't have a light box. All I did was put them on my scanner, put a piece of white paper over the top of them, and then scanned it in. So you know, and zoomed in on it, and so you can see pretty clearly what images are on it. There's no image of the alien on it, but these were sent to me by Ray Santilli. He claims they are from the Alien Autopsy film.
Okay, so I'm going to be redundant and ask you the same question again. And then I have another question. Do you feel it's possible for you to find a light box to be able to put them on there so that we can see them more clearly?
I would think that's unlikely, Chant, if I'm honest.
Okay, all right. The other question I have for you is, would you consider possibly allowing some kind of specialist, person who specializes regarding photography or film, to be able to scrutinize them and look them over?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I know that this was done. Spyros Malaris actually contacted an individual. I think he was from Kodak. And Spyros Malaris and I talked about this individual who very carefully went over the film. And I'll have to go ahead and interview Spyros regarding that, because I really cannot represent the information that he shared with me on that without his permission. So anyway, what I wanted to go over with you is something that's very interesting. And that is, so I have a shared screen with Phil, so my listeners know. What I'm doing here with Phil is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show him something he's already looked at before. And that is the alien autopsy memo that most people have seen that have become involved in researching this alien autopsy memo. I'll go ahead and share the link to that later on when I air this interview. Now, on page 2 of this alien autopsy memo, which is called Alien Autopsy Proof, which was uploaded on June 3rd, and by the way, it says Alien Autopsy Proof email communication on Imgur is when it was dropped for public view. And it starts out saying memorandum to Bob Bigelow from Eric Davis, NIDS, which is the National Institute for Discovery Science, and CC's Colm Kelleher, NIDS. Date says 3/23/2001, and it says regarding revision of memo 223 of 01, and Kit Green's professional evaluation of the alien autopsy from the Roswell incident, film, video, and other related information. Just an aside, I wanted to mention to our listeners that if this is the revision memo, I would certainly love to have seen the original. Now, moving on to page 2. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to send you the link to this so that you can quickly get to it if you need to. Let me go ahead and put this for you here in Skype. See if you can click on that, Phil, that link that comes up. If you need it again, let me know. I'll send it as many times as you want me to.
It's okay. It's okay. I could see the memo anyway.
Oh, okay. So it looks like, and I'm looking for it. It says, let me just look for it. I apologize. So we might be quiet here for a moment. I apologize. Let's see. Okay, so moving on to the second paragraph. Let's move on to the third.
There you go.
Here it is. Now, so if you go to page 2, go to 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down, counting the words that start on page 2 as a paragraph. The 4th paragraph down with an actual arrow pointing to the right. It says Bill McGarity, and later Colm, that being Colm Kelleher, contacted Philip Mantle and arranged for Santilli to get us a first-generation Betacam video and pieces of the alien autopsy film. This was a result of the meeting and conversations that took place with you, me, Colm, and Bill McGarity when Bill came to visit us in June 2000. Now I believe, okay, let me finish. Colm then had VH format copies made of the Betacam, and I sent a copy to Kit for his professional evaluation. Now, when this person says in the memo, with you, me, Colm, and Bill McGarity, the person who says me, I believe, is Eric Davis. Now,
Yeah.
right here, and you and I have talked for long periods of time about this memo on our own time, Phil. And I had asked you previously, and I think I even emailed you on this, actually, is what I did. I emailed you this. I said, Phil, the basic gist of the discussion was, who is Bill McGarity? And you had been on vacation, all that, but you still got back to me nonetheless. And you said that you had no idea who Bill McGarity is. Now,
No.
my question to you is this, Phil. Since you found this wonderful canister, basically a set of artifacts that helped to create a provenance leading back to this memo, which is important, I wanted to know, do you now remember who Bill McGarity is?
No.
Okay. Now, what's interesting about the green post-it note picture that you shared with everybody on your post today is Bill McGarity's name is spelled differently on it. It has 2 R's, and in the memo, it has 1 R. Believe it or not, that makes a difference. Now, the difference it makes is when a person looks up William Bill McGarity or William McGarity with 1 R, it can bring up different results. Now, use the same set of names with a double R, and I believe you get different results. Now, the results that I got when I looked up Bill McGarity with 1 R, how about I show you what I found with 2 R's? How's that? The ones I found with 2 R's, I found William Bill McGarity, Deputy Director for Operations in Washington District of Columbia, and that is for the United States Department of Defense. And it also says Senior Consultant for Blue Force Inc., an Army officer, and his education was in National War College, the USAF Air Command and Staff College, and St. Mary's University, and I believe Georgia Southern University. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out, and it's funny because this wonderful researcher, he's very well known. His name is Keith Basterfield. We all love him. He's a great UFO researcher. He found a Bill McGarity with 1 R and would like to let everybody know, it's important everybody understands, in the alien autopsy, it just shows 1 R, okay, for his name. So there was really no need, possibly, for Keith to have looked up a double R, because who would have thought of that, right? Now, now it says here on Keith's research regarding Bill McGarity, paragraph 4 on page 2 of the document mentions a Bill McGarity is contacting Philip Mantle regarding the alien autopsy film. So who was McGarity? The same paragraph mentions that, and Bill McGarity, when Bill came to visit us in June 2000. That's a quote from the alien autopsy memo. And it says, it goes on to say by Keith here, on his UFO Scientific Research Blogspot website, he says, I found an online website which provided a resume for one Thomas McGarity, Thomas W. McGarity, who worked up to at least January of '98 at Los Alamos National Labs. The reason I think this is the correct Bill McGarity is that John Alexander, NIDS employee, worked at that laboratory after he left the Department of Defense. Now, I can understand why he made that connection. However, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Now, funny enough, when I say who would have thought to have added an extra R, actually, I did this a long time ago with Frank. Last month, Frank and I looked up McGarity, actually we did this right after the document was dropped. We looked for McGarity immediately, and we found the same link that Keith did. I'm sure a few others did as well, but I don't think anybody looked up the double R. Now, when I did that, I told Frank it's important to look up the singular, just one R, and double R, just in case. Now, what I found with two R's, was something interesting, and that is a while back, Hector Quintanilla, United States Air Force retired, wrote an article called Preface to UFOs and Air Force Dilemma. And in that blog that he wrote, which I'll share with folks in the chat room later, I'm going to go ahead and start reading a little bit of what he said this was. Can you still hear me, Phil, by the way? Oh, are you still there, Phil?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you cut out for a second. Okay, so I'm going to start reading a little bit about this McGarity. And it's in the middle of a paragraph of what Hector Quintanilla wrote for his blog. It says, when General Cruikshank received the call from McGarity, he got all excited and hollered for Ivy Namalit, his secretary. Ivy entered his inner sanctum and told her, "Get me that goddamned Quintanilla. You would have thought that I was responsible for the hearings." Ivy called me at my office and asked, "What's up?" Now, so McGarity was mentioned once there, and you don't ever see him again. Apparently, he is, let me just double check, see if he is mentioned again. He is mentioned again. So it says, I walked into his office and immediately told me McGarity told him that he might have to back up the secretary at the hearing. Okay, so there's something else there. Now, here we go. Colonel McGarity of Public Affairs called General Cruikshank on Thursday at approximately 2 p.m. So apparently, this McGarity with the double R with the same exact name that is in the alien autopsy memo is a colonel. Not to say that's necessarily the same man, but that's what I found. Now, it's just the reason why I'm going through all of this kind of boring stuff is because I'm trying to see if this strikes a chord for you. Does any of this strike a chord in memory for you?
Not at all. I mean, I remember being contacted by Colm Kelleher, but I never heard the name. I can't remember the name McGarity at all. And okay. So there you go. You know, I've not got a clue.
Okay. Well, just so everybody knows, I did do a lot of research on McGarity with one R and a double R. I came up with Studies in Intelligence, Volume 22, Number 1, Spring of 1978 for the CIA. There might be a McGarity mentioned in there with the same name. There's also, let's see what else. I have an obituary for William McGarity with the double R. And so there's actually quite a few links. What I'll do is I'll share all the links in the chat room later. And regarding the McGarities I found. I was just hoping that by reading some of that interesting stuff that you might be able to recall who he was. Everybody kind of wants to know who this Bill McGarity is because, you know, he's mentioned in the memo, and then I see here that he's being mentioned yet again in the history of this alien autopsy memo on that post-it note. So obviously this individual has been mentioned more than once. Now, what's interesting also I'd like to point out to our audience is in this alien autopsy memo, it mentions how I believe that in, let's see, that in the late 90s, I believe, Colm Kelleher was possibly interested in a tissue sample of this so-called alien. Now let me read this right here. I want to make sure I'm right. If I'm wrong, I want to correct myself. First page of the alien autopsy memo, it says Kit was briefed 3 different times during and after his tenure at CIA on topics relevant to UFOs and the Roswell Incident Alien Autopsy. Briefing number 1, official briefing at the Pentagon in 1981. While Kit was at the CIA, he was briefed on evidence that something, UFOs, was flying around. This evidence was in the form of collected intelligence data. There was no discussion of alien crash retrieval hardware or bodies in this venue. Under additional query to Kit by Hal and Jim Westwood last fall, it was ascertained that description of the briefings met the standard of being an actual official briefing. Now it just goes on to say other things. Now it says briefing number 2, unofficial briefing at the Pentagon, 1987-88. After Kit left the CIA, he was called into the Pentagon by a person in uniform. This person showed Kit the alien autopsy photos and reports, etc. The photos of the alien cadaver Kit saw were consistent with the cadaver seen in the 1995 Chantilly film video. Kit was asked to professionally evaluate the material provided to him at this particular briefing. Okay, so I was wrong. It wasn't the late 90s. It was the late 80s. Now, what's interesting about this is it's absolutely wrong when it says here that Kit left the CIA and was called into the Pentagon by a person in uniform to then view the alien autopsy photos and reports and the photos of the alien cadaver Kit saw that allegedly were consistent with the cadaver seen in the 1995 Chantilly film video. In fact, how could he actually have seen that if it was in 87 and 88? Now, I know you know this, Phil. Spyros has brought this up, that there's absolutely no way. There'd have to be somebody traveling back in time for Kit to have seen the 1995 18-minute alien autopsy film and then see go to this briefing at the Pentagon allegedly in 87 and 88 and by a person at the Pentagon be exposed to reviewing the alien autopsy photos and reports that allegedly revealed an alien cadaver that were consistent with the cadaver seen in the film and video being the alien autopsy film. Now, there is one thing I'd like to point out here. He may have allegedly seen something that looked like the 18-minute alien autopsy movie in 1995, but there's no way he could have been reminded of that in 87 and 88 because again, he would have had to been traveling through time. Now, the one thing I wanted to point out to everybody is this. If 1995 on, that memory in 88 of him having seen allegedly an alien cadaver, an alleged alien cadaver, reminded him then of that memory in 88, then that's understandable. But we have to make it clear that this 18-minute alien autopsy film is fake. It's not real. Phil, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes on later in this memo to clarify that particular point. And he says that what he saw in 1987/88 was, in capital letters, the same as the alien autopsy film released in 1995. Not similar, not kind of like, it wasn't reminding him of anything. He says it was the same.
Exactly.
And it cannot have been the same. It is just simply impossible. I mean, people are then inferring that the CIA had some kind of involvement in faking the alien autopsy film, which is just ludicrous,
Right, and then also just something that I would like to mention that I've mentioned before in other podcasts, and that is one reason why this alien autopsy that this film, the mention of it in this memo, rings as not authentic regarding Kit having reviewed it as an actual autopsy, is because Kit, who is a scientist, said, allegedly in this memo, no corpus callosum, no sylvian fissure, no temporal lobe, no occipital lobe, no vernix, no cerebellum, no medulla oblongata, no rugae. Now, it goes on later in the memo to say, and by the way, I'm reading that from page 6, that it talks about specifically guts. Okay, so it mentions guts, G-U-T-S, the stomach area. Now, just so everybody understands, there is no such thing as brain rugae. Okay? Rugae is a term used in anatomy that refers to a series of ridges produced by folding of the wall of an organ, and it's most commonly used to regarding the internal surface of the stomach, gastric rugae. Okay, so there's no such thing as brain rugae. You would think that a scientist, a person at his level of expertise, would understand that. And just so we're clear with everybody, that area of the memo is only talking about the brain. It's not talking about anything else. Okay, so, and there's just too many other inconsistencies regarding this memo I will not go into, because we'll go into that later in this broadcast, and I'll go ahead and just continue on with my interview with Phil. Phil, I wanted to ask you, when people talk to you about the alien autopsy memo regarding the alien autopsy film, what do you just tell them in general about it?
Well, I tell them the memo's been released. It's yet to be authenticated, by those that's mentioned in it. And the alien autopsy film in general is 100% fake. And the man that made it is Spiros Molaris. And there's ample evidence to prove that. Not suggest it, not think it is. It's proven. So, people have jumped on the bandwagon with this release, this memo or whatever it turns out to be, and whoever posted it have laid their it says alien autopsy proof. That's how it's listed online when it was dumped. That hasn't been added later. The heading, alien autopsy proof, email communication. And of course, we've had Ray Santilli saying, "Oh yeah, I told you it was real. This now proves it." Well, it doesn't prove anything because it's a fake.
Right. And okay, so thank you very much for that. And you also mentioned that you were hoping that Richard Dolan would not go down the path of falling for the idea that Kit actually analyzed and reviewed the real alien, the real fake 18-minute alien autopsy film, the actual 18-minute alien autopsy film, hoax film, back in 87 and 88 with the Pentagon. Now, you were hoping he wouldn't fall for that CIA disinformation idea. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we know that Kit Green, whether this is correct or not, did work for the CIA, and I'm sure he's a very intelligent man. But if this memo, for example, were authentic, then he's not that intelligent because he's fallen for a hoax. Because he also, what this memo is saying is that he gives his professional medical, he's an MD, he's a medical doctor, gives his professional evaluation, and he says it's real. So lots of clever people, but they also have a belief system, Chant, which is different from whatever education they may have. So, I think Richard has been in touch with Kit Green. He's done an interview with him. That's not been made available as yet, although he's released some snippets of it. Kit Green now allegedly says that the CIA lied to him back in 1987, 1988. In what respect they lied, I don't know. But there is no way on this earth that the CIA are connected, whether this document is authentic or not. There is no way they're connected with the alien autopsy film. I've traced it from its genesis, Chant, right the way through to today. and there is no intelligence involvement in it whatsoever. With respect to Spiros, he didn't come up with the idea to make the alien autopsy film, although he made it. The gentleman that came up with it, I spoke to again just recently, and they're bemused by all this, and they're not secrets, they're not hidden away.
Right. I wanted to also mention to everybody to please go to page 8, because there's something that might make Phil laugh. I'm not sure whether he finds it irritating or funny. Now, I'll go ahead and read it. Kit allegedly said on page 8 of this this Bob Bigelow memo, I guess you could call it, this alien autopsy memo. He allegedly said, "That's easy." Okay, so I'll read what was asked first of him, so it makes sense when I read what his reply was. Allegedly, Eric Davis asked on number 7 of page 8, "And why the excruciating CC&D disinformation, the heavy concentrated debunking that befell the video on Scintilla when it aired, etc. Active measures to hide it from the public." Now, just so everybody understands what CC&D is, that means camouflage, concealment, and deception, which is a military term. Again,
Yeah.
Camouflage, concealment, and deception. Now, Kit said, "That's easy. The PR folks around Scintilla are indeed not operating with a full set of dishes, are a little dense and not very nice to boot. There isn't much camouflage, concealment, and deception," he said, CC&D, "disinformation at all. There doesn't need to be. I think this is a basic flaw in the analyses we have all been doing. The only explanation needed is simple. It is a legitimately classified black program controlled by persons who have clout and power, are very smart, and amongst the brightest persons on the planet." And then it goes on and just continues to rant. This is all allegedly said by Kit. Now, when he says, Phil, "The PR folks around Scintilla are indeed not operating with a full set of dishes, are a little dense and not very nice to boot." I see you laughing, by the way. Phil and I can see each other right now, just so everybody understands. He's laughing. He finds that quite humorous. Why is that, Phil?
Well, this it really does puzzle me and does make me laugh, because there were no PR folks. People have thought for years that Ray Scintilla had some kind of PR campaign to release the alien autopsy film. Well, that was certainly not the case. The cat got out of the bag by accident, Chant. That was my fault. And the alien autopsy film took on a life of its own, and it just snowballed. And there was no. I don't know who these PR folks are supposed to be. Ray Scintilla employed one gentleman, and he was called Chris Carey. Chris wasn't in PR at all. Chris was brought in to. Apparently, he was quite a well-respected man within the television business. But Chris was brought in to negotiate the television contracts and try and calm things down somewhat and try and get back a degree of control, because, like I said, it had just run away. So he certainly wasn't PR. He certainly wasn't dense. He was a very intelligent man. I didn't particularly like him, but he certainly wasn't dense. And if they are referring to Chris Carey, they say not very nice. Well, Chris was nice and polite, but he had a job to do. He was there to protect his client, So I don't know what this conceal and disinformation, where any of that comes in. I mean, the film was shown around the world. Where is the concealment? Where's the attempts to, disinformation? There wasn't any.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
So,
Gary Sheffield was not really involved. He's Ray Santilli's business partner. I saw them together, but he had no real involvement in it, Chant. There's Chris Carey. You've got a picture of him on there.
yes.
Volker Spielberg was just the man who put the money up, and he was away in Germany. Gareth Watson is a nice guy, a very nice, quiet fella, but he wasn't in PR. He was just an employee of the company. So where's the PR people? You know,
Right.
as it says on here, Chris Carey,
And
film salesman.
I would like to also make it clear to the audience that if there's anybody that would know whether there's PR people or not, well, Spiros and yourself would know, because you followed this from the very beginning regarding...
Yeah, I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours in Ray Santilli's office. You know, I used to go there once a month during the week, during business hours, so all the staff were there. I mean, it was chaos, Chant. There was no PR, you know, as simple as that.
Right.
It took on a life of its own, and Chris Carey was brought in to try and, you know, steer the ship, which at that point was impossible, you know.
I wanted to tell you something that Ray Santilli told me in my 45-minute interview with him, and that was this year. And what Ray told me was that Chris, an individual named Chris, he didn't say his last name. Actually, that was Gary Schofield who said the name of Chris. I believe Ray didn't say the name, but it was Gary Schofield who said that Chris went to the Pentagon at the behest of the Pentagon, that they actually flew him over there to look at the Alien Autopsy movie, and I guess for them to review it. And I believe that Chris, according to Gary, I have to double check my notes on that, but may have had to take that tape with him to the Pentagon, and it was the 18-minute Alien Autopsy film for them to review. Now, when I talked to Ray Santilli about that and asked him, he said that there was no such thing that took place, meaning that that was not his exact quote, but that he denied that that event ever took place, that there was nobody on his team, so to speak, that ever went back to the Pentagon to show them anything that was 18-minute Alien Autopsy related. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, exactly. And there were a number of claims made around that time, Chant. One was the Pentagon. Another one was that they'd showed it to a gathering of religious leaders within the UK. And none of this, you know, was supported. When checks were done, you know, it was all pie in the sky, absolute nonsense. So here you've got two gentlemen supposed to be in this together, and they're both telling conflicting stories.
Yes.
That just about sums it up, does it not?
I would like to make it clear also that in the 2.5 hours of interviewing Gary Schofield, and then the 45-minute interview I did with Ray Santilli, they actually directly, not indirectly, but directly contradict one another on the provenance and the history of the 18-minute Alien Autopsy film. Now, does that surprise you, Phil?
Not at all, because Gary was not really involved. You know, you rarely saw Gary. He would come and go, but he had no real part to play. I think he was Ray's best friend. That's why he was involved. You know, they were business partners. So, you know, like I say, the Alien Autopsy film took on a life of its own. When you watch the movie that they made, you know, one of the things that they show in there is how it took off. And Ray just made things up as they went along. And then when he was found out, he would change his story accordingly. And that's just what happened. You know, there were, you know, if it was the real thing, Chant, would you not think that they'd have this imprinted on their brain? This would be the most important piece of filming in the entire history of mankind, but yet they can't get the story right. I heard Gary interview recently, and he said they have 1 minute and 18 seconds of film. Now there's 24 frames per second, so that's a lot of frames. Then I heard Ray Santilli interviewed the same week, and he said, "Oh, we haven't got any. We've only got scraps." So they can't even agree on that.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm very grateful to you for your time today, and was just curious, what time is it where you're at right now?
Time is now 9:15 p.m.
Yes. Okay. So, Phil, you've been very kind regarding your time, and you know, I was just absolutely amazed when I saw that great post you did today that allowed us to look at a little bit of actual history regarding, you know, artifacts that you shared regarding this this film that is not real. And also, Phil, just so everybody knows, Phil is showing me right now a FedEx. It's an actual FedEx package, the original one used to send the film canister of the Alien Autopsy movie to Kit Green and I'm sorry, it was Colm Kelleher and Eric Davis. Can you tell us a little bit about that while I go grab my my plug? Just one sec, I have to grab my plug.
Yeah, I mean, this is the original packaging in which the film was returned to me, and the canister. And as you said, it's Federal Express. I've sent you a higher resolution copy of this, Chant. On the front here has my old address where I used to live. I don't live there anymore. There's all the FedEx stamps and everything on it. On the back is the invoice that was signed at the other end, and it comes from Dr. Colm Kelleher, National Institute of Discovery Sciences. Somebody asked on the post-it note, the green post-it note, there's no year. It doesn't give you the year, but there's a date on this, and it was returned on the 10th of the 10th, 2001.
That's
so
amazing.
You have a high-res copy of that to use as you see fit.
So
here is there's the canister, and the bits and pieces are in it.
Let's talk about that date. Can you please say that date again, the month and the year?
Yeah, it's the 10th of October, 2001.
Huh, that's interesting. The 10th of October, 2001. And the date here that we see, Phil, and let's explain to everybody if they're just coming in on this interview. October 10th of 2001, a FedEx package was returned to Philip Mantle regarding the Alien Autopsy, fragments of the Alien Autopsy movie, the 18-minute one, which is fake. And he had sent it out to Kit Green and Colm Kelleher and Eric Davis. And what does it say that Bill McGarity had anything to do with that, by the way?
No, it just mentions him on the. See, I can't open it at the moment. It's all bent.
Yeah. So it says received from Philip Mantle.
Yeah.
Via Bill McGarity. Wonder what that means though. Via. I know that means by, but what does it really mean in the whole context of stuff? Received from Philip Mantle by Bill McGarity. But what does that really mean?
Well,
does it mean it made a couple stops along the way? Like I mean, Bill wasn't standing next to you when you sent this out, so.
No, I have no recollection of Bill McGarity's name until this memo cropped up.
So then, who wrote this memo, Phil? This green piece of paper. Who wrote this? Do you know?
Well, there's two signatures on it. I assume it's them. The gentleman whose name is on the invoice that comes with it is Dr. Colm Kelleher. And I do remember communicating with him via email around about that time. I don't have the emails anymore, they're long since gone. So, but I got lots of emails about the Alien Autopsy film, and I still do, Chant. Yeah. So,
well, okay, so and I have something to say after this that's kind of important, okay? So, right here, and I'm going to bring it up again to our listeners, received from Philip Mantle via Bill McGarity. Now, Phil can honestly say he doesn't have any recollection of this Bill McGarity. Now, it says on August 25th at 10 a.m., signed, we're assuming we can't assume, allegedly signed by Colm Kelleher and allegedly signed by Eric W. Davis. Now, what's interesting about this is the date. It said, by the way, Phil, do you remember sending this off? That's my question to you.
No, I don't remember sending it off.
Now, see, that's important for everybody to understand. Phil does not remember sending this package. Now, you do believe you did, though, right?
Probably, or I facilitated it being sent via Ray Santilli and it was returned to me. That's another possibility. I do remember trying to organise a Betacam copy of the film because I have one myself.
Okay.
So Betacam is a higher quality industry used tape. So this is what they use to make copies from. And Santilli sent me this one. And I did exactly the same. I have a colleague who worked in the television industry. I sent him this, and he made high-resolution copies on a CD, and they were distributed for research purposes with Santilli's permission. And
well, okay. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about mail and how it is sent in, we'll just say first world countries. For example, in the United States. And then I have to ask you a question about this, Phil. In the United States, when you send some mail, like a package, it could take anywhere from 3 to 7 days. Probably not 7 days, but 3 to 5 days, maybe 7 at the very most. I don't see it taking that long for a package to get anywhere. Now that's if you don't FedEx it. Sometimes it can take 1 or 2 days if there is the place is local that's sending it to the person who's receiving it. Now, in England, where you're at, wanted to know when mail is sent, is it the same amount of time in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then my question to you is, when stuff is FedExed in the UK, when you use it, it generally takes what people would assume a FedExed package would take. 1 to 2 days, right? 3 days at the most. Can we agree on that? Okay. Well, I wanted to bring up this interesting date on August 25th. That would have to have been year 2001, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That this was received from Philip Mantle via Bill McGarity. Now, folks, on the alien autopsy memo, it clearly states the date is 3/23 of 2001. Now, if this was received on August 25th and probably sent on the 23rd or the 22nd, right, Phil? By FedEx, we'll just assume, or maybe even a little earlier in August. Why is the date on the alien autopsy memo say 3/23 of 2001?
I have no idea. I can't explain. All I can show you is the dates that are on this.
Right, but do you see where I'm going with this?
I do, yeah. But again, I've no recollection of when this may have been sent.
Right. But this artifact here you shared actually says received on August 25th.
Yeah,
now,
but doesn't give the year.
Right. So and doesn't give the year. So that was the next thing I was going to bring up. It doesn't give the year. However, why would it take from August until potentially the next year for them to look at the fragments of film that you provided for everybody to look at? And those fragments are really nothing. It doesn't even include the alleged alien in the 18-minute alien autopsy, right? So there's really nothing for them to review other than assuming they may have somebody who is capable of forensic analysis of the frames, the 16mm frames of film, the tiny fragments you had there, right?
Yep.
So I just would like to bring that to the attention of our listeners, that if it was being the artifact sent, that the artifact being the 16mm frames of film from the 18-minute alien autopsy, that if that was sent, it would have had to have been in year 2000, because the date of this memo says 3/23/2001, and it also says revision of memo 2/23/01. So I assume that the revision of this memo, the original memo date, was not shared. So we still have yet to wonder, what date is the original memo of this alien autopsy memo? See, that in of itself is a huge question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the dates on here are the dates that they were returned, not when it was sent, of course. And I have no recollection of sending it. I don't have or ever have had a Federal Express account, Chant. So I certainly couldn't have sent it by Federal Express. However, I would just use the normal postal service myself. But it has been returned by FedEx.
Okay.
You've seen the packaging and everything.
Yes,
That's remained in my files as it was when I received it.
I would also like to bring up to the audience, why would anybody take that many months to return a package and send it by FedEx? I mean, it's not like it was time sensitive for you to receive it by FedEx, right?
No.
So then you would think that whomever sent it by mail would just send it, and it would take the extra 2 or 3 days.
Unless, of course, they believed it was something worthy of, protecting and needed to be delivered safely. We've no idea what they perceive the value of this, the contents of this.
So is it true to say that in the UK, you all have a postal service separate from FedEx that is capable of sending packages in the same protected manner that FedEx can? Because I know the United States Postal Service has that capability. Do you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that just, it's just curious to me. So anyway, I'm so glad that we were able to go over this. I know that I'll probably have more questions when I hang up with you, but I wanted to ask you, would you be interested in doing an interview with Spiros Malaris on at the same time in the future?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for this fascinating post that you did. And do you believe you may have some more artifacts to share about the 18-minute alien autopsy movie, or have you hit your limit on this?
I wouldn't think there's anything else, but I've got bits of paper and things like that, but there's nothing on them of any note apart from just pure research.
Okay. And before we go, can you please tell our audience how many years, literally, it's been so many years, folks, that Phil has actually been in communication from the get-go with Ray Santilli and everybody else regarding this film, the 18-minute alien autopsy film, regarding researching it. How many years has it been?
You're making me sound really old, Chant. You really. But no, I was first contacted by Ray Santilli in 1993. There you go.
Okay, so there you have it. And the reason why I asked Phil that question is so everybody understands that if there's any expert on this 18-minute alien autopsy film, aside from the obvious being Spiros Malaris, it is Phil Mantle. He is the go-to guy regarding being an expert on this film, along with Spiros. They know literally every aspect, every facet of the story of this film. And one question that seems to come up an awful lot is, why has Ray Santilli said that there's a real film within a fake film? Is that, how does that work out? I know the answer, but will you go ahead and tell our listeners what he meant by that, which is not a real story?
He claims that when you see the movie, the alien autopsy film itself, that is in his words, a recreation. But slotted into it are little scraps of film that they managed to salvage. He claims that when they got the film, it was destroyed, it melted or whatever. So they used some of the images from it to make the film, recreate it. But they actually spliced in real frames of film. However, he's no idea where those real frames of film are. Of course, all you would need to do is look at the film and you'd be able to see where it's spliced, So it's just nonsense, Chant. It really is.
And it's really important that people understand that if that story were real, why does Ray Santilli not share the actual film to show the spliced areas where the so-called original frames of the film are? Right, Phil?
Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, Ray's made a lot of money from it, let's be honest, but can you imagine what it would be worth if it had been authenticated, Chant. It would be priceless.
Right.
And Ray Santilli's a businessman. He always said he wanted to commercialise the film. He would not have missed that opportunity to have it authenticated if it was real. But of course, it's not.
Okay, and I think there was something else I wanted to mention. Yes, Gary Shoefield, when I interviewed him, he told me that in order for folks to see the alleged original, he didn't use the word alleged, by the way, he did say that it was the original film, that was then interwoven into this 18-minute alien autopsy faked film, that in order to see the original frames, that a person would need to see when there's the bleached out parts of the film, like they're more luminously white, more whited out, like flashes of light during the film. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it just shows you he's no idea what he's talking about. Those flashes of light are as the leader film going through the camera. If there's anybody out there that used to use film in their still cameras before the days of digital, you put your film in your camera and you would wind it on a couple of times before you started taking pictures. Well, it's the same with 16mm film. There's a little bit of leader and it catches the light as it's going through. And that's what you see on the Alien Autopsy film. Because the 16mm film, a reel, only lasts for 3 minutes. So you have to change it. So at the beginning and at the end of each piece of film, there is this little whited out area. It's just a natural part of filmmaking. It's right. Nothing else.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Let's see, what else did he say? So I think I may have pressed him a little further on this question regarding the original parts of the film. I asked Gary if he could just tell us what part was real, if he could remember like a scene from it. And he said the scene where a crystal is being taken out of the chest cavity, the chest area of the alien, that he believed that part was real. And he also said that he had seen the 18-minute Alien Autopsy movie so much that it sort of blended together to him, so to speak, that he no longer remembered the real parts or not. Thoughts?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, well, whatever. Did he also go on to tell you that there's actually 2 Alien Autopsy films, one of which has never been seen in public? So when they were making the recreation, did they recreate 2?
Yeah, I think we did go into that. But
did the other one have frames of film in it as well? That still would be original celluloid somewhere, Chant, and all you have to do is unravel it and you will see where it's spliced. And that's it's as simple as that.
Now I think there was something else. When I talked to Ray Santilli, I asked him if the film, any of it, the original film, actually covered the Roswell incident that happened in 1947 with the alleged crashed UFO, the ET craft that crashed in actually Corona, New Mexico, not Roswell. And he said yes, it was. What are your thoughts on that, Phil?
Well, he gives a different date for it. According to Santilli, he released a statement from his cameraman that this happened on the 31st of May, 1947. Well, the actual Roswell event didn't happen until July. You know, not May the 31st, the early July. So even the date's wrong. When you look at his so-called cameraman's statement, it's full of English spelling. You know, this gentleman's supposed to be American. He wouldn't write things in English. English, if you know what I mean.
Sure, I understand. Okay.
So.
Yeah, so what we need to do, Phil, then, is we need to actually have you listen to that Ray Santilli and Gary Shoefield interview when you get an opportunity with me.
Okay.
I don't know that you have 2.5 hours to spend listening, but you probably do have 45 minutes, maybe, at some point to listen to Ray Santilli. And maybe as much of Gary Sheffield as you wish. It's up to you. Would you be in position to do that sometime this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll take some notes as I'm listening. How's that?
That would be great. And then also, I think I'm just reading my notes here on the Ray Santilli and Gary interview here. Yeah, so I asked him, can you see all the questions I asked here? Asked Ray, I asked him a total of 25 questions, it looks like, roughly 25 questions. Yeah, okay, so I'm excited. This means that we get to go ahead and listen to the interviews. Now, I just want to let my audience know before I let Phil go here that I have purposely not revealed those interviews regarding Ray Santilli and Gary Sheffield for reasons that are basically time related. I want to go ahead and let everybody know when I feel I want to go ahead and publish those podcasts for everybody to listen to, I'll do it when I want to. I think some people have wondered, well, why is that? It's just at my discretion. I don't have a deadline on it. I actually had somebody tell me, they had the gall to tell me that I had no right to publish those podcasts until they decided when I was going to do that. Now, it was neither Ray nor Gary who told me that. That was somebody else. And I scoff at them, telling everybody now that that's absolutely unacceptable. I will reveal them when I feel like I want to. But I most certainly allow Spiros Malaros and Philip Mantle to listen to them whenever they feel like they're able to. Phil, thank you so much for your time today. I wanted to ask you, before we let you go, can you please tell us what books have recently been published this year by you, and what other things we have to look forward to from you in the future, like as far as books being published or talks by you or anything like that?
Yeah, I've published a number of books this year. I mean, we had the third one by Dr. Irina Scott. This is called Sacred Corridors. Talks about all her official work on UFOs as a scientist. Then we had one called Portal by a colleague, again, originally from the Philippines, but is now a US citizen. We had the ufology umbrella by former RAF technician here in the UK. That's a chap called Jason Gleaves. And got others coming. I'm working on a follow-up book with Calvin Parker. Hopefully that'll be ready before the end of the year. So I'm certainly kept busy, Chant.
Yes, you're doing a wonderful service to the entire UFO community. And I also would like to congratulate you on your 4 decades of service to the UFO community regarding your wonderful research, and you're such a dedicated person.
You're making me sound really old again.
Well, we appreciate you very much, and I know that you just have so many people who love to be able to call you, have the privilege of calling you their friend. And when I say this, it's an absolute fact. There's not a single individual I know out there that has even a shadow of a negative thought of you, Phil. You're just a wonderful person all around. We love you.
Well, thank you very much.
And your wife, I'm sure she understands that you've been very dedicated to this UFO topic. How does she feel about it?
Oh, she has no interest in the subject, John, at all. So she kind of keeps me grounded.
Yes, I think that she should have gotten an award too. for putting up with the topic, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, thank you so much for having been on the show today, Phil.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you.